And open this work session, and thanks everybody for being here. We have two things on the agenda tonight: wastewater step 4 engineering services, and we're going to see this later in our regular agenda, but we just want to go over it, make sure you don't have any questions, and transfer of jurisdiction on Highway 1, which is North Campus Ridge. So looks like Melanie is all ready to go.
All right. So there is a memo attached on step 4. I will just touch on a few points on that. We have some attachments and other things that we can bring up regarding any questions you have. But we sent out a request for, actually I'll skip to the end and remind the council that Iowa Code prohibits, really I think anyone, but particularly cities, from doing fee-based selection for engineering, architectural services, for public works improvements. And so the way that you select an engineer and similar services is based off of qualifications. And particularly with using or wanting to use state revolving fund money or USDA money, there's a particular process to use in order to go through that selection. So we sent out a request for qualifications, an RFQ. It is typically done by invitation only, but I do think we posted it to the website.
I think so.
But we sent it, or I sent it to 5 different engineering firms, ones that we've worked with before, as well as some local companies. Gave them about a month to reply, and the statements or the returned information was due April 28th. Out of the 5 that we sent to, they all responded with something, but French Reneker Associates and McClure Engineering both responded with a full statement of qualifications. In the RFQ, it outlined the selection, who was going to be reviewing the packets in detail, as well as how things are going to be scored. It included project-related experience, understanding of the concept, the team's ability to complete the project on schedule, and then team members and their experience. The people who were reviewing it included myself, Doug Reinert, Rebecca Loper, Sean Worley, Steve Redinger, and then Matthew Rowe, the chair of the Water and Sewer Committee. So 5 out of the 6 people were able to review that before tonight, and all the scores were weighed, with French Reneker receiving the highest score. Out of all of the 4 different criteria, the 2 firms were relatively even, but with French Reneker receiving higher marks for project-related experience. Some of the things that I picked out of their RFQ that may have, or at least caught my attention. French Reneker was our engineers on step 1 and step 2, as well as Libertyville Road. They've done project management for other projects, including things that they weren't necessarily the design engineers on. And they've actually completed the aerial survey work for step 4 as a way to just kind of, I guess, it was a risk on their factor, but it was a way to make sure that they could meet the tight schedule of getting this in for the grant application. Doing the survey allowed them to do it before the leaves got on the trees, and they were able to do that. So, it's an aerial photo on the front of their application, as well as it's mentioned in there. So the staff recommendation is that we would award it during the council meeting to French Reneker. Up on your screen is a description of what step 4 includes. And so I just wanted to bring this up to the entire council if there were any questions during the work session. So step 4 is going to be the west interceptor. So we've done the whole east side of town, generally the city sewer system. flows by gravity to each side of the city. The east side, with Highway 1 being the dividing line. The east side flows entirely by gravity to the wastewater treatment plant. That was step 1 and step 2, replacing those. Then step 3 included the lift station and the force main along, kind of paralleling or running between Libertyville Road and Highway 34. And then this is going to be the west interceptor then that goes up through Jefferson County Park and eventually up to kind of 7th and Jefferson and up towards Hy-Vee. We are breaking it into 2 phases. 4A is the pink section that really just gets you past Libertyville Road. And then 4B would go beyond that. We believe there's a pinch point right there. And we might go, just past Kingwood Court a little bit farther. But we're very, very hopeful that step 4B is not needed, but we included it in the selection that way. If we do need to do 4B, we've met that requirement for any grant funding. We do hope to include adding some water main in this CD, like for grant applications, since you'll have a contractor there boring under Libertyville Road to put that sewer in, get some water main put in there to help complete the loop around the city, and it will really help some of our rural water customers. West Hills has a lot of problems with water pressure, and we are in need of finishing that loop.
Why would 4B not be needed?
So we have done through lining and some other projects, we've done a lot of removals of infiltration removal. There was a pipe that was actually exposed, bringing in creek water. The only, and I'm gonna have to try and remember this. We have not had a sanitary sewer overflow upstream of that transition between 4A and 4B since pre-2020 because of the work that we've done up there. So we believe between that pinch point and the work that has been done to the lift station, that we've corrected a majority of the bottlenecks. And if we remove that last pinch point or that last bottleneck, that the pipe that's there will meet the capacity based off of the work that we've done.
So that's a very long shot to do 4B.
Correct. I mean, EPA, and that's what we submitted to our EPA report of, let's get 4A done. Let's monitor it for at least a year, maybe 2 years. And as long as we continue to not have SSOs, we meet our compliance order, and we're done with EPA once we get that point. Now they can always put us on another one, but we've met our obligation at that point.
Boy, that's really great to hear.
Which is crazy. It's been 20 years, so that will be very exciting to get to that point.
Music to our ears.
Yep.
Definitely.
So it is making your work easier the more you've done the prep work to get some of these other steps done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was, like I said, there was a creek there at the extension of Fillmore that was found several years ago. Stuff over in the Hy-Vee, even all the way up at like the Law Center. Mm-hmm. Different intake, like storm sewer intakes that were connected to the sanitary sewer that have just been removed and caught over time.
So we don't have any crossover between those two systems?
I'm not going to say we don't have any, but it has been drastically reduced, it has been gradually reduced, and it's gotten to the point where, like I said, I don't believe we've had a SSO above that point for 5 years. So, okay, so if there's no questions on the statement of qualifications, move on to the transfer of jurisdiction, or the North Campus Ridge transfer of jurisdiction. So I mixed it up for you today. I made a PowerPoint. I got tired of writing memos. So and this one has a lot more pictures, so it was going to be much easier to do it as a PowerPoint. Oh gosh, but now I got to remember how to use this. The right button goes forward. Okay. All right. So what we're talking about on this is the access to North Campus Ridge, the newest subdivision for, or the newest subdivision north of MIU campus. If at the end of the work session there's time, Martin's here and can give a status update on the actual work, but what we're talking about is the access to the subdivision itself. So what is happening with the access is, and these are some facts about the situation, is there's no permanent roadway between the two subdivisions, between North Campus Village and North Campus Ridge. There's some construction access there, so if you've been there, you'll see that there have maybe been people driving, but that is not the intention to have access between the two. Highway 1 is a restricted access roadway, meaning that streets and driveways are limited. Additionally, DOT has to approve all accesses coming into the roadway. And this limitation, this restricted access, is likely why there's this dogleg frontage road in this area. Several driveways were likely combined into a frontage road, creating this DOT right-of-way on the south side of North Campus Ridge. And then also, there is access on the north side, currently a driveway on the north side, but MIU and the developer does not want this to be the permanent access to the subdivision. So the intent is for the south access, or the pink circle, to be the permanent access to the subdivision. The only access, or the main access, the only access by car to the subdivision. So the problem then is that the DOT cannot sell the right-of-way to the developer because there is more than one property owner in this area. DOT rules say they have to offer it to all of the property owners. Then also, the DOT cannot allow there to be a street sign to be put there because technically the DOT right-of-way ends 300 feet back from the highway. And that section, 300 feet, that dogleg, cannot be paved or seal-coated because it is owned by the state. Possible solutions to these problems is we could do nothing. That's always an option, not necessarily a good option, but it causes problems because citizens don't know how to get there because there's not a street sign. Dust, lots of problems without it being paved, harder to maintain, without it being seal coated, all kinds of issues with the doing nothing option. We could require the developer to purchase this from the DOT, but it would make it an auction basically between the developer and the neighbor. And I guess our recommendation then would be for the city to work on the third option, which is a transfer of jurisdiction where the city would receive the right-of-way from the DOT. This is a way for the city to work with the developer in order to make this work and serve the neighborhood. The way that we would get this done is the city would receive the entire right-of-way, which is the blue outline. We would receive it from the DOT through a transfer of jurisdiction document. This is similar to how we've done how we did 34. The only difference is that we're asking for this rather than the DOT telling us that we're doing it. Then at some point, the city would deed the back part to the development, which is the green section, because the development is surrounding that green section. The yellow section would remain city because it is serving feral gas to the south. Then our requirement then, as handling this for the developer, is that we would request that the developer pave the portion that the city maintains. It's a requirement whenever we take over a street, is that they have to pave it. And really what we're doing is we're doing this in reverse. Typically we make them pave it and then we take over jurisdiction. But because of we're taking over DOT right away, we're gonna do it in reverse. Our safeguard in this is that we would work it into the development agreement with with North Campus Village to require the pavement to be done in a number of years. What we've discussed is that it would be 2 years from the transfer of the deed. Again, this is really the city reaching out to the developer to work with their funding and their schedule to get this done. We don't have to do this. This is, again, we're working with them. It's a way to make this situation work and continue to access or serve the neighbor to the south, getting them a paved driveway, plowing the snow in front of them. It's not going to be the first street plowed, but it will be on our snow route eventually. So this, decisions for the council, it's kind of a misnomer because it's a work session. Really, I want to know is, does this sound reasonable to the council so that we can, I can start having these documents prepared? The transfer of jurisdiction, the development agreement, the deeds, all of those things would have to be prepared. So the council would have formal action on those at that point. But I needed to feel you guys out before we started on all that.
Can we hear from the developer?
Absolutely.
Hi, thanks for considering this. When we started off, we spoke with the DOT, and French Reniker prepared a application so that we could have access there. And then this all sort of snowballed because I wanted to put a sign down there. And so I think that sign's going to end up costing about $50,000 to do all of this. But really, I'm in favor that, normally we don't bring the roads to the city standards in the subdivisions I've done because we maintain them ourselves. But there, I think it would actually look good, and I would be happy to put in asphalt there and clean up the sides and make it look nice, like the entrance to North Campus Village. So we have, Melanie, would you agree that we have access to that? There's no restriction to access, but we just can't, modify it and put down a nice entrance marker and all that.
Yeah, we can't put up a street sign.
Or a nice limestone, thing down there. And so I've spoken with Craig, I can't remember his name, he's the manager at Grail Gas, and his concern was the same as Melanie's. It's just that making sure that whatever we would do there and work into an agreement that it would be adequate for his big, heavy trucks going in and out of there. And French Reniker would be contracted to come up with specifications for that, and I'm quite comfortable with all that. And I appreciate very much Melanie's creativity on this whole thing and making this move.
I just wanted to ask, it sounds like you do have access from the north side. Is there a reason why that's not being explored at this point?
Well, it's through MIU's property, and they have a classroom down there, and it winds around. It's not really something
Like a
that's
direct
suitable.
route, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried to make that, see that road there on the north?
Yeah.
See how it makes a dogleg just before it gets to Highway 1?
Yeah.
We asked them if we could connect to Highway 1, the DOT, after about 5 layers of bumping it up, got a fairly legalese letter back that said, no, you can only put a driveway in this type of a road every, whatever it was, 600 feet. So we couldn't put that. I actually originally had drawn the subdivision up so it would connect to Highway 1 there. They said, no, you can't. So the next, you can see the driveway on the other side of the street is, on that map, it's about 4 inches above it. And that's where we would have to connect to. And that's where MIU has its classrooms and connect to it. It would just be, wouldn't be a suitable place for a road for, 35 or 40, cars going through MIU's parking lot there. So anyway, eventually, I hope that whole strip, as development goes north, that whole strip will become part of the city, and the city will have jurisdiction over where roads can connect, and then we'd make a nice entrance there, so there's 2 entrances, north and south.
Once you're annexed, that doesn't change. DOT still has control.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What if Dell, another time.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
anyway,
for your bubble, but
I was thinking in terms of the Highway 1 that goes through Fairfield.
nope,
There's lots
we
of-
still don't have jurisdiction. It's the limited access. They can change. They can change the definition and how often there's driveways, and so they can change the definition to allow more driveways, but that would be.
Yeah, he told me, well, yeah, you can do it. Why don't you talk to Indianola? Here's an attorney's name. They're like a 2-year process or something. Anyway, Melody.
This
better idea.
would be quicker than
Yeah.
requesting a change in classification.
Is there some lighting there already when you turn in there because of feral gas? At nighttime
I
at all?
don't remember.
Just was curious.
I was gonna say, Jason, how quick can we pull up Google Streets? All right, okay, never mind then. We'll have to look into that one.
Just curious. Because it seems like you would want some kind of lighting there,
I think so, too.
into the drive, so it's easily seen. But maybe there's something already.
I feel like there is.
So what's the projected cost to the city then?
So we would have the cost of,
Just that portion, paving that one portion?
so that would be on Martin as part of his development agreement.
Okay.
So our cost would be the consulting engineer to calculate the width and thickness in order to put that into the development agreement. Not going to be a huge cost there, right, Marcus? And then what I will have to talk with the DOT is I'm not sure who then ends up writing the legal descriptions on all of this. I'm assuming the DOT writes the legal description for the transfer of jurisdiction, and then we would just have the legal description of what gets to Martin and what stays with us. And then we would have 2 years of rock maintenance cost until it gets paved. So, and some allers cost in order to modify the development agreement. And again, we can talk about those. So there's not a lot, other than the time in order to do this, there's not a lot of risk. By working it into the development agreement, there's not a lot of risk.
Okay.
And I do intend to make the paving based off of a number of years, not number of lots sold.
When do you need to start doing all this work?
2 months ago.
Okay,
Yeah, Martin's been waiting.
yeah. And how long do you anticipate this portion taking? What are you looking at?
Well, we would wait, because of the way our grants come in, the 2 years, we would probably pave it towards the end of that 2-year period. As soon as we're all finished up and our paperwork is submitted and the grants come back, then we would finish that portion there.
Okay, any other questions?
So my request is that you can give Melanie the go-ahead to start the gears working for this.
So we'll have that as an action item later. I mean,
Okay.
next meeting,
Uh-huh.
we can do that,
Great.
since we don't have it on the agenda tonight.
Right.
So if that's okay, is
Oh.
that acceptable?
We've got all the time. I just want to eventually get it
Yeah.
nailed down. So
Yeah.
there's no rush on this at all.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it looks like we have just a few minutes, a handful of minutes to take, 4 minutes to take a quick break. And then we'll start the meeting at 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. And Rebecca, please call the roll.
Ham.
Here?
Toohill.
Yes.
Estes.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Great, thank you for being here. Our first order of business is to swear in a new officer, Mr. Patzner. Okay, so if he will meet me up front. Oops. You ready for this?
I suppose.
Okay, so if you'll repeat after me. I, Michael Patzner,
I, Michael Patzner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties of police officer
discharge all duties of police officer
in the city of Fairfield
in the city of Fairfield
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now and hereafter acquired by law.
Thank you. Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Welcome. And I understand you have some family here.
I do.
So you want to introduce your family to us?
This guy right here is my father, Mark. That's my mother, Joanne. That's my fiance, Audrey. And then her grandparents behind her, Evie and Alan. And then her mother, Jen. Her father, Aaron. And then her grandmother, Sue.
Well, thank you for all coming. I should have turned around so you didn't have to do his back the whole time. I apologize. So, and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here.
I'm from the Carroll area, born and raised. I had lived in the Des Moines area for a while, bounced around trying to get on with any department I could, and finally Fairfield was lucky enough to get me, so.
There you go. All right. Awesome. Great. Well, we wish you a very safe and honored career, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's not on there?
And you can come in and sign this later.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. I'll have it on the agenda the next time and see what to do. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Council, I didn't ask if there are any changes to the agenda. Anybody have anything of note that we need to talk about? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the May 12th, 2025 council meeting. Approval of the May 23rd, 2025 payroll in the amount of $143,810.82. Acceptance of the volunteer center committee minutes. Acceptance of the library board minutes. Resolution authorizing funds transfers. Resolution of employment in the wastewater department. Resolution of classifications in the water department. Approval of liquor license for Leo's Pizza and Grill. Approval of ACH payment to the Department of Revenue in the amount of $8,393.20. Approval of total claims in the amount of $178,387.15. We had one claim that was more than $75,000 to our benefits for premiums of $78,435.86.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Toohill. Any discussion?
I did review the claims, and the ones are all seemed in order.
Okay. Any other questions? No, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes, except that I abstained from voting on the approval of the minutes of the May 12th council meeting as not present.
Estes.
Yes, I approve, but I also abstained from the minutes of the May 12th council meeting as I wasn't here.
Okay. We're good. Okay. We'll move on to public forum and appearances. So there are two tonight. And before we get started, I just wanted to note that these are not public hearings. These two people have requested to speak to and address the council. And so we will be, you're not taking questions from the people at large. You're here to listen. And I'm assuming that many of you are here to listen to one of these individuals. And we appreciate your participation. And so anyway, I wanted to note that. So first up is Jared Brown, and he has requested to address the council. And Jared, I do have your proclamation here somewhere. Here it is. I have a copy for you too.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
All right. So, what's the time limit that I have for
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. Hopefully, I can talk fast.
There you go.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Boyer and members of Fairfield City Council. My name is Jared Brown, and I have been a local member of the LGBTQ community of Fairfield for the past 20 years now. That's half my life. I am also current acting PR representative of the Fairfield Pride Committee. Through the years, I've noticed a lot of changes in our town, changes for the better, but also changes for the worse. Mayor Boyer, you once asked me if I felt unsafe in Fairfield. You remember? Mm-hmm. That was in 2022, and my response to you was, it depends on where you are. But today we find ourselves in a much different world where many things feel uncertain. I want to share with the room an experience that I recently had. While I was shopping for food, a fellow shopper was passing by me, and I also smiled nonchalantly as they passed by. My benign gesture was suddenly met with hostility. "What are you looking at, you fag maggot?" His hands were balled up in fists as he backed me up against the potato chips. I had no idea how to respond other than to apologize under bated breath and wait for him to hit me. No one saw this interaction, and I was there alone without any help. As you can see, I'm here today. The blow that I waited for never came. But I can tell you, I did not feel safe over a simple, half-hearted smile. This interaction got me thinking, if this happened to me, then how many others may this be happening to? So I set out to find out. After a public community prompt, I was able to collect over 90 testimonials, recent ones, from various people in our community attesting various levels of aggression, from mere microaggressions, such as homophobic or transphobic slurs being yelled out, passing rusty pickups, to workplace mistreatment, to full harassment. In this prompt, I offered that any testimonial I gather could remain anonymous. I will give you one guess. What percent decided to remain anonymous? The majority. With so little wanting to actually come forward, that, to me, speaks volumes as to just how safe we feel. On a macro scale, according to the FBI database, hate crimes based on gender identity saw a 16% increase as of late, and those based on sexual orientation rose by 23% as well. With such a national climate being shown to us daily, is there any wonder that the LGBTQ community may not feel safe? As some of you may know, June is International Pride Month. Pride was born in June of 1970 out of a need to push back against the establishments that actively targeted and oppressed LGBTQ voices. The first Pride was led by queer women of color who were fed up with the New York City Police's targeting of queer individuals. Today, Pride is exceedingly important for community, visibility, and activism. As time has proven, progress is not easily won or maintained. As seen more than 70 years later, we still receive a considerable amount of pushback. This is why Pride is important. It allows a deep look into our queer past, present, and future. It says to those who may be isolated in their queerness, you are not alone. It allows us to celebrate the amazing LGBTQ people who got us here and reminds us that we still have a long way to go. That being said, the proclamation you have before you is word per word the same proclamation that was passed by Mayor Boyer in 2022. Thank you for that. It's been updated for this year, and we are forever grateful for it having been proclaimed then. On behalf of the Fairfield Pride Committee, as well as the LGBTQ community at large, I would like to ask you to not only declare June as Fairfield's official Pride Month once again, but to consider also showing local government interest in the safety and well-being of its LGBTQ citizens by adding an addendum of your own free will to proclaim June as Fairfield LGBTQ Safety Awareness Month as well. Thank you for your time.
I want to thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. Sure that was not easy from one standpoint to share your experience, and I hope that we can do better as citizens, and just have self-reflection of our behaviors and do better. So with that, I want to read the proclamation that Jared gave me. We did read this 3 years ago as well. And it's simple. Whereas the city of Fairfield is a welcoming community and an exceptional place to live, learn, work, play, and raise a family, and the city of Fairfield recognized the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas the nation was founded upon and is guided by a set of principles that includes that every person has been created equal, that each person has rights to their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that each shall be accorded the full recognition and protection of law. And whereas the city of Fairfield's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning LGBTQ+ community are a vital part of all fields and professions and contribute to a stronger community. And whereas the city of Fairfield is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all of its citizens and preventing discrimination and bullying based on sexual orientation and gender identity, and is strengthened by and thrives upon the rich diversity of ethnic, cultural, racial, gender, and sexual identities of its residents, all of which contribute to the vibrant character of our city. And whereas the Center for Disease Control recognizes all LGBTQ teens are at higher risk to be the victims of violence and have increased suicide rates, and it is imperative that young people in the community, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. Now, therefore, I, Connie Boyer, Mayor of City of Fairfield, Iowa, and on behalf of the Fairfield City Council, hereby proclaim and recognize June 2025 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month in the City of Fairfield and Safety Awareness Month, and urge citizens to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ+ community and to actively promote the principles of equality and liberty. Thank you. So, Jared, I'll add that to this, and if you want to pick up a copy tomorrow at City Hall for your use, you can. We can pick it up. Okay, great. So next up is Mr. Ed Noyes, and I believe he's speaking for a lot of people here. And Ed, I know that you requested 10 to 15 minutes, but before we get started, what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'm going to do a rundown, very high level of where we've been, and hopefully, maybe I'm hoping that we'll get some clarification on some issues. Again, I want to thank the community for being here. It's obvious that people care about this particular issue, and I think there's some misunderstanding on certain things. So again, I want to give a high level, and then Ed, when you speak, you know, we would like to keep it to 5 minutes. I think a lot of what you have written, I think people have read everything, they understand what the issues are. At 5 minutes, or at 4.5, I'm going to signal you. At 5 minutes, I want to take a break and see if the council wants to hear more, as I really feel that they do know what the issues are, and they have all your documentation. So at any rate, if you indulge me at least for a few minutes, and I may enlist the help of Doug or Melanie for any clarification and finer points. And this is for the public at large, because I have been asked also some questions even in the last few days. And so starting about a year ago in April is when we first found out there was an issue with the bridge at Walton. And to give you a little history, the Walton used to be our water source for the city of Fairfield. So there's been a long history of the way the course is run and the relationship there. And I'm not going to get into that, but just so people know, that used to be our water source. So it is my understanding that the Walton committee or board of directors found out prior to that, and then they did their due diligence and then came to the city. And so again, in April, we started discussing it here at City Hall and to council members. So public notices do go into the Fairfield Ledger, they go on the radio station, they go in the Fairfield Journal, which is an online journal, it goes to the city's website, it goes on our front window, and we had requested some months ago that they posted at the library bulletin board. I have not checked there, so I'm just on the assumption that it's up, but I can't say 100%. So that is our notice to the public of issues that are going on. And this gets on those websites and those areas no later than Friday at noon. So those should be up and there and available for you to see them. Now, we do not send out personal letters to anybody in the area. What we do, there are certain times when letters do go to community members in a certain area. And those have to do with rezoning of things, Board of Adjustment items, and any type of variance. So if someone comes to the council with one of those, they will notify people right around that area. But for general things, it is up to you, the public, to look at the websites, particularly cities' websites, easy to get to. You just scroll down the first page to the calendar. You can see right there what the agenda is. So substantial research by our engineers, French Reniker, and our staff talking to DNR. French Reniker gave the city, which we asked for. We asked French Reniker to give us 3 options on what to do about this bridge. And we were looking for we were looking for the low cost option, because this was not in our budget. It was not on our radar. And all those options were discussed at Property Committee and at City Council, all the pros and cons. Any bridge option would require lowering some water levels. For the most part, if you don't do that, there would be higher costs. And according to the DOT website, which we looked at, in order to not lower the water, and put up a barrier. We're looking at an estimate of $50,000 to do that. There are additional costs that weren't presented to the city council at our last meeting in the bridge option from this other company that our engineers did try to contact and on multiple occasions and were not called back. Why, we don't know. But some of the costs not considered in the options presented, including cranes, a bond that's required of 10%, additional labor, additional engineering, concrete removal, possibly additional concrete than what was presented based on what we find when we get in there. Structural engineering, I kind of said that, structural engineering up front. And then there are costs going forward of inspections at least every 4 years. With the current option, that inspection will not be as often. So the city is responsible for future costs and liability of this bridge, and that also is a consideration. So one of the big things that the city is up against right now is, which many of you know, that the city had chosen an option. They signed a contract with a local contractor to do this work. To get out of that contract, we would have to pay for any work to date. We'd have to pay for any materials that they've purchased, any mobilization costs that they've done, have to pay for their bond, which is 3 to 5%, insurance. We calculated roughly on a low end of $60,000 to get out of this contract. We have already paid our engineering fees of $24,000. So to get out of the contract is very expensive. And right there, from my perspective, it doesn't even make sense at this point to look at another option. I'm speaking for myself. Regarding all the environmental things that Ed has brought up in his documentation, like a good attorney, he's tried to uncover many, many things. We do have a DNR letter that notes that they do not believe that there's any endangered species in this area regarding that lake and lowering the water level. So just so you know, the DNR has been supportive of what we're doing, and they do plan to restock the lake. They also said when the water level is lowered, we can then determine if we also need to do any further work on the lake to keep a healthy lake, because we don't want it to completely silt in and become just a mud hole. So from time to time, it's healthy for a lake to have it lowered and things be dredged if needed. So, and they have grants, which if we need them, we can access. So again, given all the information that we know, given the current costs of what we have and our current costs which we've signed for to do this project, and estimating costs that are not included in what was presented to us, again, we do think that the costs are not appreciably different, and to get out of this contrast is significant, so that we feel the long-term benefit to the city based on this culvert system versus the bridge in the long run, 20, 30 years from now, which we don't know if Walton Lake is going to be what it is today, whether it's still going to be a golf course or it will be something else, that the option that we've chosen is still the best option going forward. So that is high level. And with that, anything you want to add to that, Doug?
You summed it up.
Okay. So with that, Ed, I'll let you, you have your time But at 5 minutes, we will stop you, and I'm going to ask the council if they need to hear more.
As you know, I asked for 10 to 15 at a minimum, and I can tell you that if we're going to actually have a public hearing about this, we need 2 hours. I'm telling you right now. So first of all, I want to thank you for letting us have this meeting. And in 100 hours of work that I've done to prepare and look over everything, it's amazing the amount of work that you guys do and the minutiae that you do. I don't even know how you do it. So I can understand if you miss something. And I appreciate deeply. I know that the people here count on you. The waterways count on you. The golfers count on you. Everyone counts on you to do your best for the community. If a mistake was made, I count on you to say, okay, we can do something differently. We all count on you for that. There's things that are more important than being right. You are correct. This all started in April of 2024. The problem was there was only 3 choices that were given to French Reniker. The first choice was fixing the existing bridge. The second one was widening the 200 Street roadway for a new golf cart lane, and the third was a culvert. The bridge was a non-starter. Nobody's going to fix that old bridge. And as you admitted in the last hearing, it's ridiculous to try to put it out, make them go out on the Walton Lake Road. It would cost more money than everything. So the only option that was given of any import at all to French Reniker was the culvert system. Anybody that does a search of what do you use to replace a golf cart bridge, you'll see hundreds of examples of golf cart bridges. The problem is that unfortunately the city council was giving information that was inaccurate, and I can easily point that out. But before I do that, I want you to understand that everyone is claiming they didn't have notice. And I sent out an email, it was a letter from Felicity Coster saying every day, she's been here for 13 years, every day she reads Southeast Iowa Digital Newsletter and never saw one article mentioning the town's proposals for fixing the golf causeway. Saw all kinds of stuff about the size of garbage cans and all that other stuff, but nothing at all about this. So, and other people have written articles, other people are very concerned. As you know, every homeowner out there does not want this. The golfers don't want it. The golf course doesn't want it. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants this. So the problem was impregnated by the choices that were given to the property committee that took control of this starting in April of 2024. That was the problem. So eventually, if you read the actual notes of November the 25th, 2024, this is signed by Melanie Carlson, it says, the property committee agreed the best alternative was to replace the bridge with culverts. Surprise, surprise, it was only the one of the 3 options that was given to them. Ways and Means met on October the 14th, decided to split the funds 3 ways. So that appears to be the meeting that you said was public notice to the golfers that came. There was 2 city council members at that meeting. You did move into here because there was 8 golfers. They couldn't fit in the room they were in. I've talked to people that were at that meeting. They said all they talked about was the way they were going to fund it. It was not a meeting to discuss alternatives other than the culvert. It just simply wasn't. So then it says, with this commitment of Ways and Means of funding, the city has begun to work with French Reniker on final designs. On November the 24th, an agreement for final design was brought to the city council. And then it says, staff looked into lower cost options brought to the city by the citizens. However, this option would not meet the weight limit needed to meet the requirements of the course's activities. That's a flat out inaccuracy. All of these golf cart bridges that have been proposed to you and anything that you look up are pre-engineered to handle the weight of golf carts. The one that Tom Carrion presented that you have a full presentation on has a 9,000 pound weight load. The one that I presented from the Roadrunner, or whatever it was, is 16,000 pounds. They're all sufficient. The reason why this is important, because one of the major reasons that impregnated all of the conversations was this concept that if you use the culvert, you could access, emergency vehicles could access the golf course. And I watched the meetings. I watched where people were like nodding their heads. Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. You know, this is even into the March and April of this year. But the idea of using this golf cart bridge for emergency vehicles is a very bad idea. Number one, to get onto the golf course, you'd have to go down the hill, cross the greens, go onto the causeway, go up the hill, and now you're on the golf course. That would take about an additional 5 minutes. There's already in existence 4 or 5 access points off Walton Lake Road for emergency vehicles. So the emergency vehicle analysis was given to the city council to consider as an important point in making the decision to confirm this causeway system. It was a red herring. It should have never been considered.
Okay, so your stopping point
I
right
need
there.
about 2 more hours.
Yeah. So, council, I'm sorry. Would you like to hear another 5 minutes? No, I'm not asking you. Sorry, I'm not asking the public. I'm asking the council. And so I want y'all to be quiet or we'll have to ask you to leave because I have to keep order. Council, how do you feel?
I think 5 minutes is fine. 5 more minutes is okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, go ahead.
5 minutes.
So when you presented to the city council and when you approached it to DNR, you said 8 to 10 feet. I did a deep dive. It says 13 is the length or depth of the current Walton thing, but actually the DNR confirmed to me when Doug Reinhardt had a friendly meeting with me last Friday that they say it's only 12 feet. When the height of the water at the actual bridge was noted, just taken a few weeks ago, it's 12 feet. What that means is you'd have to drain the entire lake. Several years ago, it's only been a few more years, they had to drain the lake by 3 feet in order to work on the spillway. We should all remember that. When the spillway when that was done, I know exactly how far it was because I live out there. All the water, did you see the letter by Larry Paget? Did everyone see that letter? Very important. This the superintendent of the golf club. He manages the whole thing of the golf course. He's writing as deeply concerned about the draining of the lake. Draining it by 12 feet will kill all the fish on the lake, creating a terrible smell, plus ruining the fishing that the citizens enjoy. With no water in the lake, he will be unable to irrigate the golf course. The golf greens will be dead in 3 days, which are valued at $25,000 per green. To replace this is a $250,000 loss. This will impact the golf course, which will no longer exist in his opinion, because who wants to golf out on the dead lake? The last time the city lowered the lake 3 feet to work on the spillway, there was a significant fish kill, and Walton had to install a flowation system in order to irrigate the course. That's because the water had receded so much, where they get the water out was gone, so they had to bring it over. That cost $8,000 just for that. The problem now is there will be no water. They will not be able to water the golf course. You're going to have tens of thousands of dead fish. The other thing that the city council didn't properly consider is the effect on the fishermen. This is a big one. So after the last city council meeting, which was only 2 weeks ago, right? I listened to the whole thing, I watched it all. I decided to meet with one of our very best city council members the next day. I explained to him that the fishermen would no longer be able to get underneath the bridge because the causeway would prevent that. He didn't know that. He said, how can we make a decision if we don't know what's... So probably the most informed city council member all the way through 2 weeks ago did not even know that the fishermen were probably going in there and we're not going to be able to go in there anymore. So again, the city council was not acting on relevant information. I'm sorry that you spent all this money at the French Rent-A-Car. These bridges are already pre-engineered. All you would have to do is create in new abutments, concrete abutments on the ends. By the way, there's a civil engineer that lives at Walton Lake that moved there just recently that I've talked to. He has brought his family there so he could go fishing in the lake. He's very upset. He said the state of Iowa and everyone else uses these abutments. They put a pile driver down with a rebar, they create the thing, they bring in these metal plates, and then they can pour it with concrete, and then you've got your foundation. It's very simple. The bridge that I propose is $78,000, delivered. It'll assemble in 1 day, it comes in 4 pieces. One contractor can assemble it, crane can come in, drop it down on those abutments, and you're done. It's got a 50-year life. The only thing you'll have to do is paint it after 25 years. These abutments will not move. They'll be rock solid, embedded into the ground with rebar and concrete. So the price issue was never properly disclosed to the city. So that every decision making was impregnated with all these wrong ideas, and here we are wondering what the hell's going to happen to our lake. What's going to happen to the golf course? What's going to happen to the greens? What's going to happen to all the fish? Whatever the DNR did, because they thought it was 8 feet, now it's 12 feet. There's no environmental impact statement, by the way. We've looked. It's supposed to be at the DNR. It's not there. There's nothing there. What is the environmental impact of emptying a lake 12 feet that has the largest largemouth bass in southeast Iowa? Now, the good news is, and thank you, Doug, for meeting with us, he said, the DNR said, well, you know, we've got money. We can put a boat dock there. We'll even pay for the boat dock. We'll make it real easy for the fishermen to come into the lake. And the other thing is with these bridges, this is cool, you can raise them up. So now the boaters don't have to lean down to get into that old bridge. They can gently stroll underneath that bridge and go out into the big lake, coming off a fishing dock that's paid for by the DNR, and everyone's happy. Everyone's happy. So that's the option that we have. There are people that are so impacted by this, they are willing to do fundraisers to pay money for this to happen so that the city does not get hurt financially. That's how important this is.
Okay, so council, at this point, okay, thank you. So at this point, what do you want to do? Do you want to take any additional action? Do you want to do a different action? Do you want them to?
I have something that's extremely timely. If you look at that same notation, this is important, in that October 25th they talk about, it says, it is expected the lake will need to be lowering 8 to 10 feet. Lowering will likely occur immediately prior to freezing temperatures to prevent a void between the ice and the water level. So in that report, they're saying the best time to do this is when it's freezing, which is many months away. Now, for some reason, this got set for lowering of the lake on June 1. Completely unnecessary, okay? Let me say this. Drish does many contracts. They make a ton of money from the city, and I think we can work something out with them. That's what I think.
Okay, appreciate your opinion. So, council, what action do you want to take going forward?
Can I make a suggestion?
Do you want another hearing to talk about it more? I mean, my understanding is lake is start to be lowered next week. Yes, is that correct?
That's the intent.
Yeah.
I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate yours, Mayor. I think my opinion is, and I understand that people are keenly interested in this issue. I do think the city has provided the community at Walton Lake with more than sufficient notice to respond to the decision of the committee, to give advice to the council. That's why we had, I think, at least 2 public hearings. And so I think we've already made a decision to move forward. While I appreciate the information you've delivered, there's nothing that I've heard that's different or new from what's been discussed in the past. So I'm happy. I propose we continue on with the motion we've already made, the decision the council already made.
What I'm going to propose is that you wait, there's no reason not to wait, for 60 days and let these other options, which were not considered, or at least viably considered by the city council, to be presented to the city council that can lower the cost, save everything, save the lake, no lowering of the lake, save the golf course, and there's no reason not to wait because you don't have to start this till it freezes. We've got plenty of time. My bridge will deliver in 12 weeks, by the way. So we can do this all before the end of the year.
We have engineers ready, or a contracting company that's ready to go.
That's your fault.
Well, that may be, but that's the facts. And so, is there any other action, council? He's given a proposal for you to listen to.
60 days.
And
I would just be curious to know, because I think there are some misrepresentations in some of what you just presented. My understanding, and other property committee members, and Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the culvert was not the only option that we were given. There were other bridge options that we were given to consider. And then additionally, I have spoken with Tom Tarian previously, and he raised the issue of the aluminum bridge I reached out to Melanie. My understanding is, although it doesn't have the load-bearing capacity of the bridge that we need, additionally, when we were thinking about in the future with emergency vehicles crossing over that bridge, although that's not necessary now, in the future it may be if there are other people who end up developing there. So we're thinking about the future as well.
No.
So there were a lot of considerations that went into this. I know that it feels like maybe it was rushed because this is the first time that people are aware of this issue, but it has been in the works for a long time, and we have had a lot of meetings to discuss.
So you're saying a lot of things, I'm saying a lot of things, and we don't have time to flesh it out. It's too impactful to the community. We need to have more time to work it out
Your time
mutually.
was months ago. That's the problem.
No, you made these decisions back in October and November of last year.
You could have come
Final
to us.
designs.
Yeah, you could have come to us 6 months ago.
No, those are Ways and Means
as well.
committees. Those aren't public
So,
advertising.
They are on
Nobody
our website.
knows.
Yes,
Nobody
they are.
knows shit.
Okay.
Nobody knows
So-
anything. Why do you think
That's
we're here?
Ed, that's enough.
Yeah.
There'll be no swearing. The council, at this point, I'm hearing, does not want to go further. So at this point,
John,
if there's
You're
any
not
other thing.
directing the meeting, Mr.
So-
Noyes.
I'm pointing to
Anyway,
John.
You are
So-
not
I'm
directing the
pointing
meeting.
to John.
Judy, it's okay. So I think with that, we're going to stop. We need to stop at this point. So, because we're not going down a better road. Council's not taking further consideration.
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
The letter from Larry Paget was a surprise to me. It showed up in my inbox at 3:08 this afternoon. I had not seen that information before. If Walton Golf Course no longer exists, there's no reason to do any of it. So that becomes a huge concern. I guess the irrigation conversation, I think, needs to take place before we just say, no, we're not going to change our plans. Because if the golf course isn't
Melanie,
there, there's no point in us doing any of this.
Melanie, Ed, you can sit down if you don't mind, please, because you've had your due, and Melanie wants to, I think, probably speak to that issue. Correct, Melanie? Yeah. Okay.
So the last time the lake was lowered, there was a request in front of the Walton Club to sign an agreement to provide water from the lake. Similar agreement that we have with Fairfield Golf and Country Club, providing them water from the wastewater treatment plant. That agreement was never returned to the city. So on one hand, we can take a very strong standpoint and say the city is under no obligation to provide them water because they never returned that. I don't think that's the way we want to respond to them, because we would not be working with them on a bridge because it's an asset to our community. Because staff has been busy fielding questions over the last 2 weeks, we've not had an opportunity to talk with Larry about possible irrigation solutions. Doug and I were about ready to send an email to the course and Larry about this situation, and then the emails started coming in from citizens, and we haven't had a chance to discuss it. When we lowered it several years ago, we were able to extend the pipe and allow them to continue to pump. Not knowing the contour of the bottom of the lake, whether there's going to be water for them to pump from, I can't answer that. I can't see the bottom of the lake. Obviously, because I made an error in my one report stating the level of the lake, which I will admit to. I can give anyone my engineering number, license number, if they want to submit that to the Department of Inspections and Appeal based off of that 7-foot error. So, but we would, if council would like us to, we will work with them on those solutions. If it rains every day, they won't need it, but then also we'll have the reverse problem of, they're not going to be able to work on the construction. So it's a catch-22, but it is definitely something that has to be discussed.
Okay, great.
What email are you talking about?
He just sent it this afternoon.
Yeah,
I did not get it.
You didn't?
Okay.
No.
There were some emails that went out this afternoon. I haven't seen them yet myself.
I didn't get it.
And then, and Terry, you're also commenting about it being a surprise about the concern, because I think maybe it's important to remember that this request came from the golf course.
I know.
So
Yes.
that is, it was not on our capital improvements plan. It was not on our.
This was not a plan that we had.
This was not on our bucket list for 2025.
And we are under a contractual obligation to replace the bridge.
It is in our contract with Walton.
Yep.
That we are responsible for the structures within the club, on the property. So
What is the request that came from Walton?
to
Fix the bridge.
to make it, to fix it. They did
Because
not
it
have-
was not structurally sound anymore. That's why it was closed.
which was found by their insurance carrier. We didn't, honestly, through the capital improvements planning, I've tried to catch all the different things that we own and get a good handle on the age of all of those things. And I was, glad that we were getting some of those things up to date, like HVAC equipment and things like that. And then this came out of the blue. Didn't realize that we had an obligation to handle this one.
So, Melanie,
Yes, I wanted to answer your concern about the golf, about the kayakers, because Tom reminded me of a important part of that.
I was just going to ask you if the irrigation question is solvable in the time that we have.
Absolutely.
So it's not an issue that is impossible to address in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
If there's water in the lake,
Excuse me, I'm asking Melanie.
only if
Be
there's
quiet,
water in the lake.
please,
Steve?
Ed.
He's making a wrong assumption.
Steve, and I believe they have backup potable water.
They do for part of the golf course.
Yeah.
They have water for part of the golf course, and then they use the lake for the far side.
I was going to ask you, is it on the other side of the causeway?
Yes, I mean, it's
And that's not going to be affected at all, right?
up there by the clubhouse, that's city water that they water all those greens with.
But so they don't have a way to connect the two.
It'd take some doing.
Can I clarify that?
Okay, so we can,
Oh, Larry Paget's here.
The water by the clubhouse is just used for that one green. That's
Just
city
that one
water
green.
hook up there. The rest of the golf course comes from the lake. Tees, greens, fairways, the whole property comes out of the lake, out of that pump station there with the bridge.
Okay, so Larry wasn't up here, so to the community out there in the world, Mr. Paget's here. He said the city water right by the clubhouse waters that green. Everywhere else comes from the lake. But it is sounds like a solution that can be fixed.
There is a city water main 30 feet from their pump house.
Okay.
I mean,
Fire hydrant, we could put a metered line and run up there, plumb into the, or a sprinkler system or something. If we look at it and work together, I think we can figure something out.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So you want to, I'm sorry, Doug, is that all your
I
questions?
want you to make that clear that we have a solution to the watering problem.
Yeah.
It's not going to destroy 10 greens, and it's not going to cost $250,000.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
And this is a temporary situation. Do you want to address the kayaking or no?
yeah.
Because it came up?
Well, and I was saying, I personally, I love to kayak. And Katie Anderson, former councilwoman, avid kayaker. So she actually hasn't messaged me about this. I'm surprised that she hasn't, because she loves kayak that much. So it's something that I would love to see on Walton. But Tom pointed out, we actually, from a city liability standpoint, we don't want kayakers on the main lake because of the golf course. Not people who are not familiar with golf, or if Tom is golfing, kayakers don't know how far to be from the golf course. So or if Steve's golfing, yeah. I mean, I can't hit anywhere near far enough in order for it to be a problem. But we would, if we encouraged people to kayak on that main part. Right now, they slip under it's not an attractive attractive nuisance. We're not encouraging people to.
Slices and hooks are not legal defenses.
Yeah,
They're not
so
affirmative defenses.
we would need to be putting buoys or signs out there of telling people like, don't go closer to the shore than this, if we were encouraging people to kayak on the main lake. And so that was another reason when the property committee discussed it that we said, yeah, it's too bad that we were cutting that off, but people probably shouldn't be going under it anyway, from a liability standpoint.
Yeah. And I just want to share that. I mean, I can appreciate, that probably doesn't sound like it from where I sit, but I appreciate the fact that this is frustrating for you. But from where we sit up here, it's completely frustrating to us that if this was so important to you, why didn't you come earlier?
Just found out about it.
So you have to look at the city council, the city website every couple weeks to see it. It takes 5 minutes to see the agenda. It's posted in the front window here. It's posted on other websites. You know, that is your job as a citizen. We do not send personal letters to you. Nobody comes to knock on your door. No. You know.
Oh, no, we can't talk. I'm sorry.
You know, Ed, you know that. You know that it's your responsibility as a citizen to pay attention. And when you're not paying attention, you don't get what you want. I'm sorry. I can hear your frustration. I do. And I wish we were having this discussion 3 or 4 months ago. I really do. I have seen this council bend over backwards for citizens on bringing issues to the council. And it's, you know, we appreciate that. Sometimes we do get better answers and better solutions.
Couldn't you move some of the fish up to Pleasant Lake?
Anyway, so that's another thing that's we're not going to discuss here tonight. But if you want to bring that to one of your council members to discuss, please do so outside this meeting. At this point, council, one last question. Any other action from you?
Yes.
If not, we're moving on to our agenda. Thank you. And we're moving on to resolution, action items, and ordinances. Okay. The first action item is consideration to award wastewater treatment plant step 4 engineering services. We talked about this at the work session.
Let's go outside.
Move to approve.
Well, you got to assign it to the company.
Which one are you talking about? Action item?
Awarding it?
Awarding it to French Rent-A-Car. I think you have to include that in the
I'm
motion.
sorry, I didn't read it. Consideration to award wastewater treatment plant step 4 engineering services.
Oh,
Say the motion.
Rebecca, it should be remove wastewater treatment plant. Just consider award step 4.
Wastewater step 4.
Yeah.
To French Rent-A-Car.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What?
To French Rent-A-Car.
Add that phrase? All right.
'Cause that's what the memo is about, isn't
Okay.
it?
Yes,
Okay.
that is our recommendation.
To French Rent-A-Car.
Yes.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Who made the first motion? Thank you, Mr. Candy, and Flournoy seconded. Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Esty?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Okay, next action item was consideration of Carnegie Foundation fundraising for roof and north addition to Carnegie Museum. As you know, last work session, 2 weeks ago, Brittany was here.
A year ago.
Yeah. It was our last work session from the previous meeting. Brittany Tiller was here discussing how they want to move forward with the Carnegie building. They want to put a new roof on it and restore what it used to look like. And there's also a addition on the north side that they want to add bathrooms to each floor, easier fire escape access. Anyway, it's a big project to chew, and they just want permission from the council to your support for them to fundraise.
Implicit in this request is that we're going to allow them to put the addition on too, right?
No, it's just a fundraiser. I mean,
it's just a fundraise, really.
Yeah, they will come back because the details of the addition, the exact size, the renderings, will need to be vetted out at that point when they get ready to do it. The exact year that it will happen. And some of it, I think, will depend on where the city stands with Indian Hills at that point. And once I confirm with the mayor her schedule, that Doug and the mayor and I are scheduled to meet with Indian Hills in a couple weeks.
There's also a start on some of the funding with the Gobble Trust, and that's never going to be 100% from the Gobble Trust, though. There always has to be some fundraising. So, but right now, I think the Gobble Trust for parts of this might be available up to 75% even. That's what they've been doing on some of the projects that you had reports on. So there's still money left in the Gobble Trust, but not enough for what was talked about for the next 5 years.
Okay, I'll make the motion to endorse the Carnegie Foundation fundraising effort for the north, for the roof and north addition.
Okay, moved by Flournoy. Is there a second? Second by Esty. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Great. The next action item, consideration to set public hearing for fiscal year budget amendment for Monday, June 9th, 2025 at 7 p.m. By the way, that was included in the packet, and if you look down at the notes, it tells you the explanation of changes, the ins and the outs, so to speak. So,
Move to set public hearing.
moved by Gandy.
Second.
Second by Kness. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Next resolution, consideration to accept settlement and completion agreement and addendum as final. Melanie?
Yeah, so the additional foundation removal at the fire station site, the foundation removal is done by Bob Brown Excavating. So this is for the council to accept that as final. Anything else that could be found that was associated with the additional work is still covered under the original warranty until August. Just a little update that Christner is still working on removing the floor, but the foundation stuff is done.
And the rain didn't hold you back much this week?
A little bit. Actually, the rain fell in between.
Okay, great.
Bob Brown, he got all of his stuff done on that Friday, and backfilled and compacted, and then Christner's sub came in like the Tuesday or something like that following. So, and we were discussing about the rock holding up of his excavation and then them coming in, and I'm not sure if it's in here, but yeah, it wouldn't be if it's in Christner's stuff, but you know, because of the fines in it, it's just like this rock wall, and Christner's is continuing to dig to remove the floor. It's pretty neat looking, so. Other than the ultimate cost of removing the floor, it's going well. So, just looking for a resolution or to accept this as final.
So move to accept the settlement and completion of the agreement and the addendum
Moved
as
by
final.
Ham.
Second.
Second by Flournoy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ham.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Next we have 3 tax abatements. The first one is for 305 West Washington Avenue. If I recall, these are all the same person, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Moved by Kness, second by Flournoy to approve the tax abatement application for 305 West Washington. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Kness?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toothhill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Thank you, approved unanimously. Tax abatement application for 408 East Broadway Avenue.
Move to approve.
Moved by Esti,
Second.
second by Kness. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Esti?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toothhill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, approved unanimously. And 707 West Taylor.
Move to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Kness, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Kness?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toothhill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
The next resolution, consideration to provide supportive tax credit application for Vastu partners. I just want to point out that the secondary letter of support from the mayor had some wrong numbers in it, and it mentioned the 3-year tax abatement, and we changed to 5. So there was a new letter put out way late this afternoon. So the letter that was on there originally was not quite right, but you know, in essence, it's the same. The resolution is still the same, providing the support. It's just the letter that I write. We changed some numbers in there to make it accurate.
Move to approve resolution.
Okay, moved by Gandy,
Second.
second by Kness. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toothhill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Now we're going to go to ordinances. This is our third and final reading, consideration of amendment to penalty section for the building maintenance codes. This is aligning this with our municipal infraction ranges, and the fines are from $105 to $855. Again, this is the third and final reading. I will open the public hearing on ordinance 1261. This is the time and place to have public input. Does anyone want to speak to that? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Seeing none, nobody wants to come and speak with that. So, council.
I make the motion that we move or adopt ordinance 1261.
Okay, moved by Flournoy.
Second.
Second by Gandy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toothhill?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Thank you. That was 1261, approved unanimously, the third and final reading. Ordinance 1262, this is the second reading, consideration of alternative enforcement and procedures and penalties for nuisance and housing safety enforcement. One of the things that was in here was the penalty be paid at City Hall, but my understanding is there's possibly something different. Are we going to bring that tonight, John?
Am I going to be?
I don't know. I just heard about it.
Yeah. Johnny emailed your office on late on Friday, so you might not have it ready. So it won't be in this reading then. The ordinance, the way it's written, and I guess unless you guys want to make a friendly amendment right now, the way it's written says that the penalties are to be paid at the law center and the drop box thereof. And as much as I appreciate the police officers and dispatch staff, they don't necessarily need to be handling the nuisance payments, and we have a drop box here at City Hall. So the words law center could easily be replaced with City Hall and have those dropped to here. I intend to be working with our code compliance software to be possibly issuing these citations through our code compliance software, which then really we would not have any cost to issue those citations. But then our cost, maybe we could invest in return envelopes or like brightly colored envelopes like parking tickets do. That way
Easily deciphered.
People can see them, and then they can easily be separated from water bills, or if they do happen to get at the law center or courthouse, because sometimes people don't know the difference between City Hall and the courthouse, that they can easily be separated. So
yeah, that happens a lot.
Does somebody want to make that friendly amendment?
I'd make the friendly amendment to change Law Center to City Hall.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Kness, second by Toohill, to make an amendment to this, to change out Law Center to City Hall. Further discussion on that?
Dave, Shannon owes me. Just say yes.
You still need a motion to move the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make a motion to move the ordinance from the second.
We have a public
Oh,
public
yeah, I
hearing.
didn't
Thank you.
open a public hearing, sorry. I will open that public hearing, thank you, I forgot. Does anybody want to speak to this ordinance? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Now let's go to Ordinance 1262. Don't we have to vote on the amendment first?
We have to vote on the amendment.
You're confusing me, Doug. That's what I was ready to do. And then you said, oh, we got to pass.
Sorry. And
Okay, yes. The friendly amendment first, moving it, changing it from police department to City Hall.
No?
It's been moved and seconded. So any discussion on that point alone? The location where the fine is paid to go to City Hall instead of the Law Center. Okay, call the roll on that.
Kness?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Okay, now it's to move.
1262 from the second to the third reading.
Yes, thanks for finishing my
Second.
sentence.
Second.
Moved by Flournoy, second by Esti. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Ordinance 1263, consideration of amendment to chapters 9.76, 10.24, 11.08, grass and vegetation. This is our procedures for mowing grass and removing shrubs. Do you want to talk about the new procedures?
Yeah.
And then I'll open the public hearing.
Yeah. And so just in this ordinance, there are some changes from the last time. There's some spelling errors that are shown in blue, and then some changes that are in red. So the way this will work, the draft public works policy is attached here. So the ordinance removes the requirement to publish it in the newspaper. Our intent is to still publish it in the newspaper once per month, as long as we have a newspaper. April through October, once a month, the description of what will be said is listed in there. Under the title of courtesy community notification. Also, as long as we continue to have inserts or a way to notify citizens in the water bills, it will also be listed in there. The process will be, we'll start off very similar, that properties are identified by staff or through complaints. Staff reviews the property to see if it's in violation of any of these code sections, whether it's that the vegetation or the grass is too high or the vegetation is unruly. We're working on a brightly colored door tag. And I did not include it. There's an example in there, but it provides the date that it was inspected and then the different code sections. And then it says that you need to come into compliance within 5 days of this. And then on the back, there is lines for additional remarks for the inspector to say, mow the whole front yard or remove bush on the northwest corner of the house. Whatever the situation is. Then it also says on there, or the city will assess a minimum cost of $150. And it says minimum cost in bold and underlined. Then, so that will get attached to the door that is facing the addressed side of the street. We don't necessarily know what door people enter, but we'll do our best to make a judgment call on that one. And then after those 5 days.
Melanie, just one question. I'm looking at the policy,
Mhm.
and probably you mean if it's not available, the door is not available, you'll place it in, it says auspicious location, probably meant conspicuous location.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm excited to find that. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Conspicuous.
Well, I mean, auspicious, we're like trying to find the best. Anyway. So then, after those 5 days, it may be closer to 7 if we do inspections like on a Thursday and then mow on Friday. It will be reviewed again and mowed if it has not mowed or weeded, depending on what needs to happen. Our intent then also from a staffing procedure is that we will take a picture of the property at the date of the notice, and then we will take a picture of the property before we mow it. I'm hoping that we can remember to take it after we mow it as well, but you know, if we can get it before we mow it, that's one. And then also, let's see, if there are, for commercial properties or properties that do not have a building on it, we will still send letters. So commercial properties, if we cannot get somebody who is clearly an owner, you know, like I'm thinking Norm's Storage. I don't expect, we do not require commercial properties to have a property manager, whereas even in our rental code, we require someone to review the property regularly. So, or if it is an empty lot, because we're not gonna judge whether a house is vacant or not. And so only commercial properties that commercial and industrial will send letters to. And so that is our intent on the procedures. This is the going from the first to second. And so we will order those tags soon. And be hopefully ready to roll after your next meeting. This is the second to the third?
This is the second reading.
Yes, second to the third, so then the last reading will be in 2 weeks. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right, okay. So with that, I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to this procedure? Not, I'll close the public hearing and ordinance 1263, second reading, moving to the third.
Motion to move ordinance to third reading?
Second. Moved by Gandy, second by Toohill. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 1264, consideration of amendment to chapter 7.04, solid waste collection. We cleared up some brush definitions and some of the compost sections, so it's more well defined. Those are the major points of that ordinance 1264. We are moving this to the second, from the second reading to the third reading, and I'll open the public hearing. Anybody want to speak to that? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and council ordinance 1264.
Move to approve ordinance 1264 to the third and final read.
Moved by Kness.
Second.
Second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Kness?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 1265, this has to do with the amendment to 7.06, the recycling, has to do with late fees that did not get updated in this ordinance, so we're updating it here. I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to that? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Council?
I'll make the motion to move 1265 from the second to the third reading.
Second.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Esti?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Great. I really don't have anything under the mayor's report, only reflection on just what happened here this morning, or this evening. I have my own frustration about, again, how to get information out to the public. I don't know how to get people engaged. I'm going to admit, I don't know how to do this. We've been doing community dialogues, thinking that would help. And that's been pretty consistent. Almost every month we're doing that unless Werner isn't available. I don't know. So give us suggestions. How do you want to get your news?
Well, I think one thing we've done sometimes is just when we're coming up with something that maybe we don't know it's going to be an issue, becomes an issue later. Just make sure that we make the point whenever we can, remind people when we're speaking, because we're being recorded and some people listen to it and they talk to their friends, that you have a certain amount of time to respond. We are giving you notice, we're telling you about it, we're talking about it, we want to hear your opinions, and you have a certain amount of time to do it. Just sort of underline it during our meetings so that hopefully the idea is enough notice will go out, we keep saying it enough that we'll sort of head some of these disputes.
And it was brought up that articles weren't in the paper, and I have to say, we don't have control of that. That's a private business. We don't write the articles.
Yeah.
And we don't have control of whether that goes in. Can you tell me after the meeting?
Yes, I will.
Please. And, because I want to hear what you have to say. So that's a question not only to this board, but also to the community at large.
And it has, because this came up as it did, annually, we do make that decision about, it used to be the radio station and the local newspaper. That's not happening anymore.
Well, both of them are still happening. Well, however, the radio station, we don't know what exactly they're doing at this point because it's not. Yeah. They took kind of the local stuff off, but maybe it's still on their website.
Well, no, I looked the other day. There's nothing.
There's nothing.
Local.
Right. And so my inner question was, maybe it is time to find another newspaper, even to be, I don't know, if we go with the Ottumwa newspaper. But I don't know that will solve the problem anymore.
No.
Because, even Facebook, as faulty as it is, doesn't get the news out to people. Because most people aren't talking about this kind of governance. And so my question is, how would we do that if the golf course knew they were alerting us, as was brought up tonight, and yet not talking to the people around the lake themselves? I guess that's the question of what are we hearing, or is it that we just all have too much information, that we're hearing just the things that we need for the temporary and not the ongoing stuff?
Well, odds are if they had known a year ago that we're going to fix the bridge, and a lot of people did know that we were going to fix the bridge, they still wouldn't have been concerned until they heard the details of lowering the lake level.
Right.
After the fact. So just letting them know that the bridge was going to get fixed would not have drawn their attention, I don't think.
And I'm not convinced we would make a different decision. I think you made the right decision. I think there's too many unknowns.
Yeah.
That the figures that we're giving are not complete.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced we did anything wrong either, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bridge, so to speak. But every property committee meeting I attended, I'm not on that committee, but everyone I attended, and every Ways and Means meeting I attended, there were representatives from Walton there. Yep. So they knew what was going on. Mm-hmm. And whether it was an issue to them or not really isn't our responsibility. It's theirs. And if it's an issue, then they need to rally the troops like they did tonight, which was too late, but that needed to be done at a different time. They were aware of it.
Last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we made them aware of it. They were aware of it. They attended the meetings. They had all the same information we had. Mm-hmm. There was nothing behind closed doors that was done or anything that wasn't done it wasn't discussed at those meetings.
Their biggest concern was that we fixed the bridge and it wouldn't cost them anything, it seemed to me.
And I think, unfortunately, there's this risk of information going out there that's not entirely accurate, and it gets people emotional, and they get so hardened in their opinions, but they may not have all the facts, and the facts they may have may not be actually facts.
Yeah. Well, and that's one reason I tried to clarify tonight, kind of the rundown. And with a cost of a minimum of $60,000 to get out of this contract, at this point, that doesn't even make sense to me. No. I don't know how anybody can argue with that.
Right.
So anyway, I'm sharing a little bit of my frustration. thank you for listening to me and chiming in a little bit. We don't need to hash it out anymore.
I think you did a great job.
So
I think the environmental stuff will solve its own a year or two after it's done, and it won't be, because there was an uproar about the fish the other time, and yet that's gone. We've moved on, and it does get healed, and we need to voice those things. It does get healed. No one likes to see the earth opened up and changed. That's hard.
My impression is most of these damaged ecosystems recover on their own very quickly.
Yes.
It's not taking enormous amounts of time. It might take a couple years.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so enough about that. City Attorney report.
Alrighty. Let's hand that around. I've got a few things, but I do want to comment. I want to second what Paul said about it. I thought you absolutely nailed it as far as the summary to the crowd. I came prepared to tell the crowd something else. Everybody out at Walton has the answers from 25 years ago. It's in their abstractive title. It's very clear in their abstractive title that the city owns the lake. There's also 3 pages of covenants out there, and there's a whole page just on the easement and what that means about the lake. If the city wants to drain the lake dry, they've had that power always, because they've always owned the lake. Since DNR was involved in this, when we did the infrastructure changes in 1999 and did the subdivision in 99 and 2000, we were under the gun from DNR. $10,000 a day possible civil penalties for not dealing with our septic and water system out there. All of the people that bought lots out there were the beneficiaries of what we did to fix the infrastructure. And that's in their abstracts of title, including the map that shows the annexation and what the city owns, which is the lake, and also the subdivision, which shows the way all the lots are set up, that they're subject to the regulations of the DNR as well as the city utilities. It can't be any more clear. But other than that, what is happening here, and it isn't something that's in the state code, but if you were in California or were watching YouTube some night about initiative and referendum, if people don't like something, they can put a ballot issue on and say, we want you to vote to retract your plans for this improvement or that improvement and so forth. That's not Iowa, and that's not what they get to do just because they own a lot that we sold them. But that could have almost been the case if you reverse yourself completely, and I'm going to encourage you always, don't reverse yourself. You have the ownership, you have the full authority out there. No matter what Mr. Noyes said, I probably would have disagreed with him at least 10 times as far as things that he submitted being completely inaccurate. Example, talking about the DNR building docks. The DNR insisted on us not having anything in our planned subdivision that would permit a dock on that lake out there. And it's in their covenants on every one of their abstracts. And it's a contradiction right now. Maybe DNR was saying something like that to somebody that they talked to because they wanted to placate them, but they haven't read our abstract title in the last 25 years, apparently. Imagine that. But anyway, so enough said about that. But the idea that people come in after you have acted the way you're supposed to, as far as open meetings on your committees, open meetings in the council, presumably some news that's out there in the public that people actually look for, you haven't done anything wrong, period. You know, don't beat up on yourselves for doing things the way you're supposed to do them. And the people coming in and saying that they've been cheated out of something, horse feathers. They've got some of the nicest lots that the city could have sold them. Who wouldn't want to have a lot on a lake with a clubhouse across from it, a golf course, and just the facility that makes it pristine out there? That's one of the best things the city's done, and it's the only private development that the city has completely as its own. So, enough said about that. I handed around a letter here. I want to tell you about something that the chief of police, Doug, planning office people went over to talk to the Greater Jefferson County Foundation Finance Committee before the holiday. And what's going on is we've got the Felger Fund. You got a chance to meet the dog and the trained officer at the last meeting. We're a little bit into something where I guess I'm looking for all of you to be subtle politicians with the Greater Jefferson County Foundation people, and I think some of them will probably reach out to their councilmen and figure some of this out too, but they have a large board, about 15 members. Their board also has a grants committee. I've suggested that the Felger Fund, which will be depleted as far as paying for training and purchase of dogs, if we go through the rest of what the funding shortage is and fully reimburse it just out of the Felger Fund. The Felger Fund will go in the hole. It's got about, what, 46,000, Dave? Does that sound right to you? But if we spend 35,000 on the equipment for the car, which we do need for the SUV, and we've just spent 16 or 17 on training and dog, we don't have that much money in the Felger Fund. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the grants committee and the full board of the foundation understands that it would be great if they would recognize we still want them to pay out of the fund they administer for the training of the officer and the dog. And then we want them to treat the rest of an application to the regular grants program as a challenge. Basically, if they'll put half in, the Felger Fund will put the other half in, and we'll still have enough money left over to train another dog and another officer the way the donor hoped this would work. And I think there'll be enough people on the foundation board to encourage the grants committee to do that. We won't know what the grant committee does, though, until the end of the summer. So the grant application's in, isn't it, Dave?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's due by June 1st. But then the committee gets a couple months to act on it, and assuming we get some good news out of them, we may want to attend their award ceremony. But that's what the purpose of this letter is. It's going to be in the hands of the foundation board members tomorrow night at their annual meeting. So I want you to be aware of that, because I'm wearing two hats on this. I'm also their general counsel, and they usually listen to me. So, that being said, I've got a few other things too. If I can figure out where I put them next. Doug and I attended a Mary Welch hearing on the property over at the corner of Broadway and Court, the Penny Lane building. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but we've got an agreement with Mary that we will be allowed to do an inspection over there sometime between now and the third week of June. That sound right to you?
Yes, we have an appointment this Thursday.
Okay.
But I have reached out to a certified building inspector.
Okay.
I will be taking city staff. I invited them to come here. But I don't know that they can get on we can get on their schedule by then. So we'll go, and then we'll have the building inspector come in and review that building. I think that'd be wise to have a report from them to the judge rather than me.
Okay. Now, I've been reporting to you the last 2 or 3 council meetings that there's some things showing up in the Des Moines Register every Sunday about an ongoing activity caused by the sheriff up in Powesheik County at Decorah. And the sheriff took the position of telling the other law enforcement in the county in an email that was out for about an hour, and then he withdrew it, but basically that they shouldn't team up with ICE if ICE comes in and wants them to detain people, on suspicion with no warrants and no affidavits and no facts. And anyway, so the governor and the attorney general of the state have sued him. There's now an active thing going on with Luther College up there. Luther's worried that they're going to be identified as a school with international students. If you can imagine that. We've got a school with international students, and I just had a conversation today with the Dubuque City Attorney's Office, and they basically, over the weekend, their sheriff over there said they don't have the manpower or the resources to be involved in detentions with ICE, and immediately the feds informed them that they were going to be classified as a sanctuary city and would lose their federal funding. I think that's a bunch of horse feathers myself, as far as anybody being penalized for taking a position that they favor due process. And we heard about due process tonight here again, but this seems to be the way it's going. I think you're going to see more towns getting into the same boat and probably trying to back away from being forced to do things either as far as detention on suspicion. I think that's illegal. And I also think the things that are going on as far as questioning campuses because they have international students, I think that's both racist and it's totally against the First Amendment as far as who you associate with. But enough said on that. The Des Moines Register also had something that we want to pay attention to as far as our open meetings, and particularly Jason in the back corner. Jason broadcasts everything all over again, and there was a case brought by some members of the Iowa City School District, basically went all the way up to the Supreme Court, where there was a lawsuit against the school district for open meetings posting the discussions that went on under open meeting rules correctly, after notice and agenda and so forth. But when they were posted, the people who were talked about at the open meeting said they were slandered, that they were defamed, that they should have, a judgment in their favor going forward. The Supreme Court said, no, that's not right. There's something called fair report privilege, where if you're just rebroadcasting something that is accurate, it's a complete or a good summary abridgment of what was said, that's not defamation. That's only reporting what happened at an open meeting. There were several cases discussed where different facets of this were addressed by the Supreme Court, but the whole idea is we can broadcast, and if somebody comes in here and says somebody's a crook, if they say somebody's dishonest, and so forth, the defamation, in the opinion of the Iowa Supreme Court, goes back on the sayer, not the public body that's having the hearing and is hosting the conversation. So that case, Iowa City School District, is just out from the Supreme Court in the last week. And I think it's important for us. One other thing, the Register had 3 pages on this weekend that I think probably we're going to get a chance to look at again, is sidewalk laws. And apparently the town of Des Moines is going to have, for the next 15 years, 180 miles of sidewalks redone because they need good sidewalks. I think the message is going to be, if it's that important up there, most of the rest of us towns are going to probably be looking at our sidewalk ordinances again, even with what the Supreme Court's doing as far as trying to dump more liability on us. So enough said about that. The only thing that's on my city attorney report is that's actually indicated as what I intended to talk about, is I will have an intern come this summer, and his name is Holden Smith. I looked around for somebody who had a name like Booker Smith and his father that practiced law here for 110 years, and Ed Kelly, and I 50 years ago bought Booker's practice. I told Holden about this, and he said, well, I might fit right in. But anyway, I want to bring him around to meet all of you in the next couple weeks. This, actually, I think today was his last day of finals. He'll be a third-year law student, assuming he's as smart as I think he is. And other than that, hopefully this one will take.
Yeah, didn't you have someone else last?
I had
that's a local
young
attorney
woman named Amy for a while.
But wasn't there a local attorney that was?
I did. I had,
Yeah.
yeah, I had Shane, and he got in a bit of a jam and worked it out, got reinstated and so forth. But he decided he was enough of the box. He wasn't going to step up. So we're good friends, but that isn't going to work. So I got with the deans of the two law schools, and they found somebody. Holden is from a county seat-sized town in western Illinois, but he grew up in Iowa to start with, and he's got very good resume, and he's got a wife and 2 little kids. He's going to continue to live in Iowa City. They've got a lease up there until he finishes his bar exam and so forth. But I expect we'll have him on board, assuming you guys don't take a dislike to him. And he'll be helping with some things like our infraction drafts, some of our other nuisance stuff, the 657A things. They're actually, each one is a form of litigation that has some things that go into the suit besides. We've got some of those that are dangling right now. And so I will have a list of things that I propose that he start to do. But other than that, he'll sign a letter of intent like we did with the last intern we had that the council met, named Amy. And other than that, I guess we'll just see how it goes. He will be signing a letter of intent to be an intern for June, July, and August. And then, assuming that's gone okay through the school year, with an idea that he would take the bar exam, be a assistant. We've got to create that position between now and the end of his taking of an exam. But we've got plenty of time to do that, plenty of time to see how well he does. So I'm anxious to get started with him. I hope you guys feel that he's a good pick. But there's a lot of things that he will be totally green on, more so than the last couple of times I've tried it with an intern. I had somebody that already had some law practice experience. This will be a young man that thing that attracted me to him as far as his qualification right now is he's been helping manage and running the student clinic that the law school does. So he has been exposed to courtroom scenarios, and he's helped oversee cases that the clinic does. So from that standpoint, I think he's got a little bit of an edge on somebody that's completely green.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Good. I don't think we have any committee and board reports. Doesn't look like it. And I forgot to mention the first Homes for Iowa was delivered today. I don't know if
First one?
Oh, that's what that
Homes
was?
for Iowa delivered today on 7th Street.
First Homes for Iowa.
Oh, Homes for Iowa. Okay.
Yeah, and sorry to interject this, and they got themselves in a little pickle. They went 10th Street, they shouldn't have. So we had to like backtrack, and it got a little dicey. But the house is not on its foundation. It's right next to it, so we'll be back tomorrow to load it on there. So
What's
it's kind of cool.
They went the wrong street, have you said?
Yeah, they went down the wrong street.
Oh.
Yeah, why, I don't know. I said maybe the GPS was off. I don't know.
Okay.
So they had to back up and drive again. So yeah, there were a couple casualties, like a street sign that's like this. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that.
Scout.
Administrator report.
Well, I did have in my report talking about we are looking into grants. I did have a conversation with the DNR and some of the grants that they do have available. They did talk about having grant funding for dredging lakes and grant funding for boat ramps, and when I want to say kayak launches, I believe that there was one that was received maybe from the DNR for Pleasant Lake. So they are there, and we are looking into those. And then I'm gonna let Melanie talk about the fire station if she wants to, and I just sit for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Reiner? None? Miss Melanie?
Yeah, I feel like most of the stuff we've already talked about. At the top of page 2, the second paragraph, some of you may have been copied on emails related to a few safety things on the trail near Crow Creek Bridge. I think we're still working on the low-hanging wire. We do know Windstream. We know whose it is. Working on it, yep. And also, we have solutions to the mud that was coming up on that. We're gonna use some of the bridge. The bridge did come in under budget, so we're gonna use a little bit of that money to help with some safety things on the trail due to the mud coming up on the trail in that area. So just a few things that had come up there. Then also later on that second page, there's a second paragraph on the fire station. We talked about things are going fairly well there. We're going to be looking at change orders related to the delays. Assuming there's not any, wordsmithing errors in that second paragraph, I think that second paragraph can be a paragraph that you can share with anyone who's having questions about what has happened over the last month, about returning to the site to do the warranty work, and where we're at now. So that does kind of summarize what has happened over the last couple months for anyone who is asking questions on that, or that you want to follow up with. And then we actually have a pre-construction meeting tomorrow for Sunrise Trail. So that's going to be moving very soon, and we'll have an update on.
What happens in a pre-construction meeting?
So we discuss contact procedures, who's the main contact on site, who's the main contact for the city, procedures for requesting any changes on the site, and then going over high-level details of the construction, such as when are you going to start, what are your working hours, typically who's the main contractor's main contact. So more procedural things rather than the means and methods of construction. Getting everyone introduced. Don't call Melanie to work on a water main issue. Just go ahead and call Steve, because Melanie's going to call Steve, and that way your call doesn't get lost in Melanie's email. Just things like that. That each city is a little different, and
this is for the infrastructure layout.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep. So and each city is a little different, and even times of the year are different for even the city. And so we do it for pretty much every construction project, just to kick things off. And then typically after a pre-construction meeting, we issue a notice to proceed to say, yep, everything's in line. We still feel comfortable with the contractor. We're gonna allow them to begin. Typically some submittals and the insurance and all that stuff is reviewed. Well, insurance is reviewed before we send the contract, but some submittals are discussed at that time as well. And then the other thing, I posted on Facebook as weather starts to warm up. DNR listed had a really good article about when and why there are beach advisories. And so I shared it to the Facebook page. With the cooler weather this weekend, nobody was really thinking about swimming in Waterworks Lake. But when it starts to get warmer, people might have questions on the lake conditions, so I just wanted to point that out to you. What was posted on the Facebook page was a stuff that we pulled from the article as well as a link to the article. So DNR's article just really summarized things well and why they don't issue anything. I mean, they don't issue them after Labor Day, even though the contamination levels might be just as high. So anyway, it was a good article. Okay.
And with that, we got to remind the public that we need help reinforcement with, if we got goose poop problems.
There you go.
We always need public help on keeping the beach clean. So
no
help
matter
us out.
what, the beach is swim at your own risk. But when it's at a higher, when a beach advisory is in place, it is especially a swim at your own risk. Particularly if you have compromised immune systems, it is not a. The article states that a beach advisory is not a beach ban, or we're not roping it off.
And springtime is always the tough time.
And then
they're
also,
nesting.
And then when it gets really hot and dry, also because the water levels are a little bit lower and there's no dilution to the goose poop at that point.
Yeah, or swim in our pool.
Yeah.
Enjoy the chlorine. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill, second by Kness. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.